back to talk to Phantomile. So now Pamela's dropped us off at this convenient jetty. This is the Temple of the Sun. Yeah, I just said that. So yes, it's taken until World 5, but we finally have our collect four MacGuffins to open a big door level. I think every platformer has to have one of these by law, at least if it's in this kind of linear clearing stages fashion. Yes, those two guys, Solaire and Soleil. I actually love those guys. Mostly Soleil, just because he's ridiculously sarcastic and a lot more honest than Solaire, who appears a lot of the time to be the kind of diplomatic, bravado, like politician type. So anyway, each of the four orbs has its own little course like this. Most of them have their own little gimmick. In this one we have knocking down those little bridges in the background. We've got a nice little U-shaped section of level here. And it's important to get this bubble here to firstly make sure you're all the way down on the spring, and also to wait until the camera gets into position to actually allow you the shot at it. So yeah, we knock those platforms down, and now we can use them. Come over here and grab the red gem, which appears in our inventory kind of like a key. The spiky git here is gonna... I'm sure there's a better way of getting those, but I couldn't figure it out. Also, you'll notice the platforms kind of raise themselves back up. This spawner's a bit of a dick, because it'll spawn some armoured guys, then I'll spawn a non-armoured guy. It can be a bit annoying, and the timing to get the non-armoured one over to where that egg is ridiculously it's a ridiculously thin little time frame. But I figured, since we've already got Since we've already saved 2 of the priests in this area, we probably don't need it. It probably contain gems or something like that. So there's the blue orb, hovering just tantalisingly out of our reach. And I believe these are our first new enemies of the world. They'll do those spike balls in a little arc. They're not too difficult to spot. Also not too difficult to avoid. There's a lot of moving in and out of the screen on these platforms in this world. And I decided there, it's just going to be easier to take the hit rather than go back and grab the unarmored move. The spike ball that they swing doesn't affect whatever you might be carrying or whatever you might be throwing at them, which makes them a lot easier to deal with. But we got 2 orbs already. What makes this level a lot more tolerable is the signs telling you, basically, you are on the right path to get this gem. It's a nice signposting that you don't often see in these, like, collect the 4 MacGuffin levels. There's no real reason to wait on that. It's just a downward lift. Just hop up. The spike ball also has a really weird hitbox. See that switch there in the inset? Just off to the left. That'll open that door. And hitting the switches in order will gradually open all these doors to get us to the green gem. I didn't actually notice that though until heading back to look for a way in. And I got killed by a regular move. I have no excuses. It's also a bit of a tough shot to make. The hitbox on that compared to the ironwork surrounding it can make it... It's a very precise shot. There aren't many areas in the game where you have to do that level of... where you have to have that level of sniping. Very little room for error on that jump. It's literally just get up there. You're fluttered. Your ears can get you up there if you miss it slightly. Failing that, you're going to be in trouble. Another door opened. And in case you're wondering, yes, the lava is an instant kill. It's really the first non-bottomless pit to be an instant kill in the game, so a lot of the time it's going to be fairly easy to avoid. But if you just drop into it expecting, you know, like lava is in a lot of other platformers, it's something you're just going to be able to, you're going to be able to tank the hit. Very easy extra life there. And a very fun sequence of armoured moves. But yeah, if you just go in expecting that you'll be able to tank the hit, the lava, it can be a bit of a shock to the system when you see it as an instant kill. Another thing that makes this orb hunt a lot more tolerable is that after you've gotten an orb, it'll often just give you a pipe that'll spit you out back at the altar. So you don't have to backtrack all the way to the altar to drop it on its pedestal. If this was done for ease of programming, like so they don't have to, like so they can just have one, animation for throwing the orbs down, then you know I can respect that. It's making your game, if it makes your gaming design, if it makes your programming easier and also benefits the player, then that's something I think everyone's going to be okay with. Sadly, grabbing a coin while under the influence of the fairy doesn't give you 2 extra lives. And now we're on to a tough bit. We've not had to actually jump on these flame spitters yet. We've been able to, but we haven't specifically needed to. It's a very thin platform. You have a very small amount of time to get the jump right. Put it into the pipe. That's all 4. And the door opens. Hit the switch. That's the world clear. After the somewhat somber ending of the last chapter, it's kind of nice to have Solaire and Soleil there, just to give some comedy, lighten the mood a bit, and actually explicitly refer to Ghadius as Mr. Evil. The little musical piece is getting longer. World 5-2. is light. Yes, it's everybody's favourite game mechanic. The game mechanic where you can't damage enemies while it's dark. Yes, this level is a gigantic pain in the ass. Every enemy becomes invincible in the dark. You have very limited time to move through each area until... and you can kind of tell how much time you have by those little diamonds and gems in the foreground. During the darkness, that little flying enemy will appear. He is completely invincible, but you can stop him moving briefly. Where the darkness becomes a bit more tolerable is that you can only move along those platforms there while it's dark. When it's light, they kind of vanish, even though they look like they should still be passable. There you can see the gem gradually going darker and darker until it actually becomes nightfall. I don't know the exact timings, but I think you have like maybe 10-15 seconds. Of course, it doesn't get dark indoors. That would be ridiculous. So provided you're actually inside the temple, you have as much time as you need to do your business. That's a nice tricky little move there. Allowing you to just hop off the platform. Yeah, the challenge in the dark and in the light is really just getting what you need to do done in the time. Like moving over the dark platforms and making any double jumps you may need to make. Every so often we'll come across one of these lifts. We need to hit switch to activate them for really no reason. The switch isn't quite by it. Maybe it's just a bit of flavour. That's a dangerous move there, going for that fairy, because if you do go for it and you can't get up the platforms in time, it's going to bone you slightly. Unless like I did there, you use an enemy to double jump up to where the fairy would be, and then wait until it's dark to actually go for it. Now a good bit of hazard timing here. These fire jets will pretty much always be going when you just get into them or are just leaving. And this area is a bitch. We need to get rid of those armoured moves in order to move forwards. But of course, we can't fire at them when it's dark. So it takes way longer than it really should to get this section done. And of course when we get over there, it's probably going to turn dark again, and we have to wait for the moves to return to normal before we can actually get our job done. This is a very difficult jump. As proven. You really have to get this kind of pinpoint spot on, just in order to get up onto the ledge without falling back onto the spikes. There's a lot of these little pinpoint jumps on the inside section of the temple, kind of to compensate for the fact that you're not dealing with compensate slightly for the fact that you're not dealing with the... You're not dealing with the day-night rubbish that goes on outside. In this section where going for the eggs becomes way more of a risk-reward proposition. Because you know, if it's just a gem or heart that you don't need, then you're wasting time. And while time isn't really an issue in the game, it is going to get frustrating if you're constantly having to wait for... It is going to get frustrating if you're having to constantly wait for day to turn back into night. Or night to turn back into day, rather. And this is I think, just obnoxious, this little section here. Because we just barely have enough time if we don't... If the platform isn't in position when we grab the guy, we only barely have enough time to get over. Up there is where we need to go. And it's very rare actually to see two checkpoints that close together. That's because we actually have a fairly sizable bit of stuff to do over here. That Moo is caged up. It was actually kind of nice we saw him transform in the cutscene, kind of proving that all the cutscenes in the game are done in engine. So yes, there are four of these switches to grab. Everyone lowers each one of them lowers the Moo's cage slightly more, and then we fall. So yes, after grabbing the switch that was in that little like alcove section with the armoured Moos, it's not really that difficult. You can use the caged Moo to get up here, where it spits us out onto a magical platform ride. And more flame jets. And these can be very dangerous, because if you mistime it, you're going to end up in the lava, which, as I've already mentioned, is a one-hit kill. I'm not sure, but I think this might be the only time in the game where a door actually just spits you out onto a point of no return. See, I mentioned the timing of the flame jets earlier. It really is just safer to jump over them, whether you feel you need to or not. More switches. Okay, just to let you know, there are going to be some frame rate issues in this next cutscene, for which I apologise.
What?
Klonoa. Kita tinggal. Sim, kids both mes. Pauci tevol. Tu berzal tinggal once. Galgalot eudolio. Malware avoina geld bankuch. Lady is Nizio Dalselm.
Thank you very much.
Several failed attempts at the boss later, our frame rate is sorted, and we finally get to deal with Joka once and for all. The first phase of the boss fight is fairly simple. Joka will just stomp around the arena. And it's just a case of throwing the moves in between his rotating fists, which will just knock him away, and also do damage to us. So while getting close to him will give us an easier shot, it's sometimes hard to tell how close those fists are to our actual platform, and so whether we're at risk of getting hit. After a few hits, turn to the centre, and this happens. Behold Joka's true form. He's also changed the colour of the arena. Basically, we need to hit every space, dodging the darkness enemies, who of course we know can't be picked up, and also dodging Joka's attacks. This is the phase of the fight where he gets most dangerous. His attacks can be very hard to dodge if you're not paying attention to him. Well, obviously you're trying to concentrate on turning the arena back into yellow, which will force us back into daylight, and force Joka back into his attackable form. Now in the second phase he starts moving a little faster. This makes it a bit harder to hit him from range. And you have to throw into the screen. There's no way to hit him side on. This makes it a real test of your accuracy with this boss. After another few hits, he'll take us back into the darkness. Now purple has appeared on the rings. So only to turn the block, his attacks get faster as well. He throws out both his blades for this section of the fight. And also spins them a lot faster. And you also notice the occasional heart dropping down. Those will appear for a short while, but they're very rarely in a position which you can readily grab. Also, when he's throwing his blades around the ring, it will make the enemies jump up, and that kind of freezes them in place for a while. Which is what makes the faster spin more of a threat. Because you're going to be more or less frozen in place if an enemy's on. You're going to be frozen in place if an enemy's on a space that you need to turn. But after another 2 shots, it's over. Joka has been defeated. Grandpa has been avenged. Also, now Pamela can get to the roof of the temple. I'll see you in the Moon Kingdom.